A discussion which I quite often see on social media is, should you buy a house? Is it okay to buy a flat? Should you just stick to houses? Should you ignore flats? And I know that there's people in the property community who have very, very strong ideas on this. I have to say that I don't. The reason being is that I just do not like hard and fast rules, not just in the instance of should it be a flat, should it be a house, but in so many aspects of property investing. You'll find that people who do property investing in a particular way become very evangelical about the way that has worked for them. But they're forgetting that we're all buying using different strategies, we're buying different types of property, we all have different levels of experience, we all have different skill sets. And I don't think that a lot of the time we can have this sort of very specific yes or no, right or wrong binary approach to property. And I think when it comes to houses and flats, that is the same. Because I so often see, and it's usually the people who say stick to houses who are the evangelical ones, and they say do not buy flats. And I understand why they're saying that, because what they're thinking is that with flats you usually have a leasehold, you usually have to deal with some kind of freehold management company. The freehold management company come up with a service charge. The service charge in some instances can be quite high, depending upon what the service charge is used for. And there's usually a ground rent to pay with a leasehold property. And depending upon the terms of the lease, then the ground rent can actually increase quite significantly over the years. And so cash flow can be diminished. And that is all well and good. And I totally understand that. But to use that as an argument that you should never touch flats, to me, and you can have your own opinion, I'm not saying you're wrong, but this is just my opinion, I think is throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because ultimately what it all comes down to is whether the figures work. And an example of this, I've just been out viewing some properties, and one of them was what's basically a flat in a commercial conversion. So it's quite a new flat. Now, the flat's on the market for £120,000. If you're wondering where flats are that cheap, it's actually up near Nottingham. It's £120,000. The rent is rented out to a tenant already at £750 a month. The service charge is £125 a month, and there's a ground rent of £50 a month. So let's work out the maths. I'm not very good at maths, but 750 minus £175, I think that comes to 575. Now, compare and contrast that with a terraced house which I've just been to see, which is also on the market at £120,000. And this is a terraced house, it's a freehold house. By the way, not every house is a freehold. There are some areas of the country like Sheffield where you'll find leasehold houses, so you need to make sure that you know what you're buying. This particular house isn't in Sheffield, it's somewhere near Nottingham, and it's £120,000, and the rent is £550 per month. So there we are. So we've got a flat which has got a service charge and a ground rent, but you're still going to be making £25 a month more in cash flows. So you need to just understand the figures. Sometimes it's okay, in my opinion, to buy a flat, but you need to understand the figures. Other times you wouldn't touch it with a barge pole because it's just going to be too expensive. However, having said all of that, of course, there are other things that can come into play, such as not having to deal with a freehold management company. But there is a twist in the tale, because I've just come across something which I've never come across before. In over 40 years in property, 25 years of it investing for myself, I was helping somebody, advising them on buying a property, which is a leasehold property. And they wanted to buy the property as a buy-to-let into their limited company, as many of us are doing nowadays. And the lady who is basically the main director on the freehold management company, the freehold management company is formed by individuals who are owners of other properties in the block. There's actually, I think, 5 flats in this particular block, and so there's 5 owners in theory who sit on the freehold management committee. They have their own separate limited company to run it through. But the most vocal lady told the estate agent via the solicitors that they would not sell, or they would not allow the owner to sell to a limited company. Now, I don't know where that stands in law. You'd have to look at the lease to see if they have the power to do that, but it didn't really matter because the solicitors just kind of like rolled over and accepted this. Now, if I'd been buying the property for myself, I would have been absolutely livid, because to be told by the management company that you cannot buy that property. If I was selling the property, I would be even more livid, because basically the freehold company are actually dictating the size of the market that the owner can sell to. Now, as I say, I think that this is very dubious and suspect from a legal point of view. If you have any ideas on this, then please comment below and let me know what you think. But I think it's all very iffy, and I would, being the owner, I would have been particularly upset, and I would have fought that and said, you cannot stop me selling my property. This is my property. You cannot tell me that I can't sell to a limited company. But there we are. So I've never seen that before, but if you want a reason not to buy a leasehold property, that could be one. But as I say, that's the first time I've ever come across that in over 40 years of being in property. So it's not like it's a common problem. By and large, I would suggest that you just look at the figures, make sure that the figures work, and then make your decision mainly based on that. But you may want to find out a little bit more about things like how the freeholder actually works, and what the tone of the freehold is, whether they're aggressive or helpful. I hope you found this video useful and informative, and if you did, then please come over to my website www.thepropertyteacher.co.uk, where you'll find loads more great property related resources, including free special reports to download and my best-selling series of ebooks, which includes the Successful Property Renovators Workshop, 63 Common Defects in Investment Property and How to Spot Them. And if you're just starting out in property, or if you want to grow your portfolio, you may be particularly interested in the Successful Property Investors Strategy Workshop, in which I'll take you through exactly how I started and built my property portfolio, starting literally with none of my own money, and how I built a portfolio of £2 million worth of property in just 4 years. And that was starting from scratch. I'll take you through everything that I did right so that you can copy me and do the same. And I'll also show you everything that I did wrong so that you can avoid the mistakes that I made, and so that you can progress in property and be far more successful far more quickly than I ever was. And this is based upon my own real life experience, and it took me about 4 years to actually work out how to do property investing properly. But in the 200 pages in the Successful Property Investors Strategy Workshop, I'm going to show you all of that 4 years knowledge condensed down so that you can use it immediately. And until next time, here's to successful property investing.